Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It is a Monday morning, beautiful Monday morning, second day in the month of September 2024. You're listening to the Smooth Breakfast. Yours truly is Ayokunmi Kekireku. And it's that time to get into the world of the papers and take a look at what the headlines are saying and what is getting Nigerians talking all around. This is Freshly Pressed. It's an interactive session, as it always is. So you can join us by sharing thoughts with us on WhatsApp. The number is 0809 440 981 0809 440 981. You can also join us on YouTube. We're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. My analysts are in for a Monday morning to kick things off. Mr. C and, of course, AV Bozimo. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Mr. C, and good morning to all of the marvelous listeners out there. Have a marvelous Monday and a productive week ahead.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Eddie. Good morning, Lagos.
All right. On that energetic note, let's get into the groove of things. And of course, we're going to be talking about the petroleum sector. That is one thing that has been biting really hard last couple of weeks. And of course, over the weekend. And I will ask, gentlemen, do you have fuel? Because it is absolutely redonkulous. But anyways, let's take a story coming out of the Vanguard right now. And the NNPC, this is coming from the NNPC, and it says how $6 billion NNPC debt is causing the petrol supply hiccups. Now, global suppliers of petrol are no longer enthusiastic about supplying the product on credit to the NNPCL due to piling debts. Now, this according to the Sunday Vanguard. Now, competent industry sources told correspondents last night that NNPCL, which solely imports the products using supply agents, is apparently weighed down by over $6 billion in debt, which the firm has not settled over time. Mr. C, in the last couple of weeks, we've had different stories about the weather, Mother Nature, and, mother vessels, daughter vessels, granddaughter vessels, and so on and so forth. But the NNPCL have come out, or according to reports, that it is debt that is causing the wahala we're in concerning the fuel queues.
Okay, thank you, Ayo. So I want to correct you. So you said it's been weeks. It's actually been months since we started noticing fuel queues all over the country. Now, it's extremely baffling, right? That in a country with such vast amounts of crude oil, with five major refineries, four of which are state and smaller pockets of modular refineries, that we do not have petrol in this country. Now, at least for the past 18 months or say 24 months, the NNPCL has been largely the sole importer of petrol into Nigeria. Now, the question is, why do we import petrol? Long story short, very quick summary, none of the refineries I've identified are up and running. Now, the Port Harcourt State Refinery, we've been told since last year, oh, it's going to start, it's technically complete, it's this, it's that. Hasn't started. We're not hearing any more excuses. It's just complete radio silence. Now, with the refinery in Ibejuleki, they've kept shifting the goalpost. The new goalpost is September. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the 2nd of September. Now, we weren't told any date in September. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. We will wait until the 30th of September, and then we'll then discover where we are. Now, the NNPC owes $6 billion. The question a lot of listeners will be asking, what exactly are they owing for? Did they buy anything? So because we do not refine crude oil in country, right? We take our crude oil out to refineries outside Nigeria. They refine the crude oil for us, and we have to pay a fee. Now, that fee has built up over time, and it's now estimated to be about $6 billion. Now, first question I have for the people concerned, from the NNPCL to the regulators, even to government, when this debt hit $50 million, what was done? Who raised an alarm? When it got to $100 million or $200 million, what was done? Who raised an alarm? When it got to $500 million, what happened? Did anyone speak up? Now we're discussing $6 billion that is being owed. And it then begs the question, Why are certain individuals within and outside the government hell-bent on continuing the importation of petrol when we have refineries that are up and running? Remember, we have the domestic crude oil supply obligations in which both the IOCs and the local crude oil extracting companies are required to give a certain amount of crude oil to the refineries. Now, hold that thought. We took a loan of $3.3 billion from the African Import-Export Bank. That loan was backed with oil collateral, meaning we mortgaged future oil production to secure that loan. Now, currently, our production is somewhere in the range of 1.2 to 1.3 million barrels of oil every day. At least that's the official amount, which OPEC agrees with. The other amount that was mentioned by the president in his last speech, which is 1.6, and that is not correct because OPEC doesn't agree with it. The Nigerian regulator, that is the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, doesn't agree with that figure. Now, the Bajuleki refinery requires 650,000, it can do 650,000 barrels. When you deduct that from the 1.2, you're left with about 550, 600,000 barrels. When you take the Port Harcourt refinery, which needs about 120,000 barrels, you're left with maybe 380, 480,000 barrels to sell. This is without taking into consideration what we have to pay back through the FXM Bank and other loans that have been backed by future crude oil production. So it's really a very interesting point we found ourselves in. I don't know where they're going to find $2 billion, $3 billion to even start to offset part of this debt. And that is the major reason for the queues we see all over the country, because the people supplying are saying, look, we cannot continue to supply when you have this outstanding debt. Now, more importantly, how do we prevent this from happening again? We can only prevent this by ensuring that the refineries are up and running. And to do that, the cabal holding that industry tight has to be dislodged. Does the present government have the political will to dislodge them? That's a question that's up for debate. I don't have the answers. Two, there's been a lot of opacity concerning certain transactions in that industry. The Afrexim Bank loan, the $3.3 billion transaction, how many barrels of oil have been mortgaged going forward? Nobody has those details. Now, is the refinery in Ibejuleki, that is the Dangote refinery, is it finally coming on stream in September? Nobody can say for sure, because every time a date has been announced concerning the commencement of the refining of crude oil in that refinery, it's never come from the refining officials. It's always from the government. Now, what does the government know that the refining officials do not know? Because I would think the refining officials are in the best place to tell you when they will start.
Or could it be the refining officials giving the government that information?
I don't think so, because they can fairly speak for themselves, as we've seen over the past 4 or 5 weeks. When they need to speak concerning issues about the refinery, they don't wait for the government to speak up. So the bigger question is, are they going to get the full allocation of crude oil they've requested from the NNPC? We don't have the answers. And then the NNPC too should learn to be transparent. Now you're a company under the Comey and Allied Matters Act. You have to be transparent with information. Now, we don't know the $6 billion figure. We don't know as at what date this figure was computed. What is the figure as at 2nd of September 2024? Nobody knows. For how long will this continue? When are the fuel queues going to disappear? Nobody knows. Nobody is saying anything. Now, the Ministry for Petroleum, 2 of the 3 ministers are outside the country. The minister who is in country, I'm not sure he knows a lot.
Interesting times ahead. AB, I get the feeling you want to get a sentence or two in before we move into another story here. Please go ahead.
Just one word. The Minister of Petroleum, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, currently outside the country with all this going on. And people are afraid to deliver fuel to Nigeria because we have become an embarrassment on the debt front. They have ships just outside Nigeria trying to discharge, but they refuse to do so because they can't trust us as being creditworthy. Like Mr. C said, 100 million, 200 million. Let's go all the way up to 1 billion. Why does anybody in NNPC still have a job? When you consider too that those refineries have been gulping billions of naira every year, non-functional. The people in charge should be sacked. I didn't stutter. Next story.
All right, let's take this one coming out of this state, and it has to do with security matters. And this one was of really interest, anyways. It says Matawalle CDS service chiefs to storm Sokoto to flush out bandits in the northwest. Now, outrage at the activities of terrorists and bandits ravaging Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, and Kebbi states, the Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Bello Matawalle, has directed the Chief of Defense Staff, that's CDS, that's General Christopher Musa, and other military chiefs to move to Sokoto with him as part of an intensified effort by the federal government to rid the Northwest of the menace of banditry, kidnapping, and other forms of terrorism. So is he going to go to the war front out there? Because this call, I I don't get it.
Generals generally never go to the war front. They marshal the resources. I would say the outrage seems to have been intensified because of that very recent gruesome killing of a traditional leader. That was completely out of line. It was completely criminal, must be condemned by everybody. But it does suggest that some people's lives seem to be more valuable than others. Because before now, we have thousands of Nigerians who have been killed. Okay, so we now have outrage. They say today a man wakes up in the morning. I think there could be some positivity in the story because now the Minister of State for Defense, and who is the Minister of Defense, by the way? Why is it the Minister of State who's doing? But setting that aside, he is about to marshal himself and the necessary forces to go and take this head on. I am actually happy to see somebody who seems to be offended enough to want to go and put an end to this. All those other words that they use, like bandit kidnapping, it is all terrorism. They want to go and dislodge a certain person who they seem to have identified, somebody called Bello Turji. For goodness sake, do you even know the person? By now, with all our name and fame and every BDN linkage, we have been able to identify the person, the location, and terminate him without any resource or anything. But they are going to go. I'm going to take it at face value as one of the positive stories today. And I expect there to be swift, sure action. Let me tell you, Nigerian soldiers and other army officials have over time proven themselves to be excellent. Anytime you see us deployed in those United Nations, things all over the world, we tend to perform very well. I have no doubt about the capability. So hopefully, with the political leadership also supporting the effort, I expect to see excellence. Do you know the sad thing about this story? Because the people in these beleaguered areas have felt so desperate, they themselves have been mobilizing themselves to go after the terrorists. In fact, in recent times, they killed about 37 bandits, and they were able to rescue about 150 of their kidnapped compatriots. It's a pity it has taken this long for the federal government to bring its full force to the affair. But honestly, I hope that the stories we'll be hearing very soon will actually contain better news than what we've had in the past. So kudos to this Minister of State. Where is the main minister and what is he doing? Maybe driving a bulletproof jeep in Abuja somewhere. We'll see.
Oh my goodness, we'll definitely see. We'll take a quick break right now. When we come back and we'll take more stories and of course your reactions as well. Keep them coming in on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. That's the WhatsApp number. We'll be back in a bit. Don't go anywhere. It took them this long to be outraged.
And as I say, is it because of that unfortunate murder of that, that person? How many thousands have been killed? And then how many more displaced and injured? We never talk about those injured when this horrible attack happened. And of course, the disruption to life. 77 people were killed in Plateau one time and all buried in mass grave. We weren't outraged that time. Also, then, of course, the other story about farmer header clashes, my sentiments on that. Let's wait and see. It's just unfortunate. But, okay, they're woken up. So the sound is much better now. I'm hearing Mr. C much better, thank God. So whatever you have blocked, great. What
So
is
for
with
me,
your pump?
okay, we're
Yeah,
going
go on,
back in.
please.
No, we're going back in. Don't worry.
Oh no. Okay, later.
All right, welcome back to Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It is a Monday morning, a time to talk about the headlines and, of course, bring the spotlight to the news stories making the rounds all across Nigeria. Welcome on the journey with us. My name is Ayokunmi Kekerek. Mr. C and, of course, AB Bozimo are still with me on this one. And we're going to take a couple of messages here. But before I do that, the WhatsApp number once again is 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. And we're streaming live on Zoom at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Joseph Menye says it's absolutely disgusting and annoying how NNPCL has been operating a catastrophic propaganda of lies, despite the so-called declared profits and promises that the queues would soonest be over. That is just logistics issues for 4 months. Today, September 2nd, 2024. We hear that NNPCL is indebted in the tone to the tune of $6 billion. What happens to Dangote and local refineries, which claims to begin operation this month? God help us. Ajayelunila says, the president will do well to decisively deal with this hide-and-seek game of NNPCL on fuel supply before it runs the country aground. It's inconceivable that NNPCL, that had just declared a humongous trade profit, is now claiming financial stress without any explanation on when the Port Harcourt and even Dangote refineries will start production. Cisco Delgado says, maybe because I have not been buying any petroleum products for the past 5 years now, because I run on solar power. I have equally decided not to use petroleum vehicles for a while now. The solution is total green economy. I intend to get myself an electric vehicle, or better still, convert the petrol car to an electric car. Cisco, how many people can actually afford to do that? It's not the cheapest thing to do. Long term, maybe it makes sense, but the initial outlay, it's not cheap. All right, back into the stories, Mr. C. I'm coming back to you on this one. Taking a story out of the Premium Times, where Nigeria's Secret Police, the State Security Service, or the SSS, on Friday, 30th of August, returned the seized passport of multiple award-winning investigative journalist Adejuwon Soyinka, blaming his arrest on possible mistaken identity. Inibehe Effiong, a human rights activist and public interest lawyer, accompanied Mr. Soyinka on a visit to the SSS office in Ikoyi on Friday to retrieve the seized passport. Mistaken identity. Interesting times.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ino. So, again, this is a story that makes you wonder what exactly is going on in Nigeria. So, the gentleman, Mr. Adejuwon Soyinka, returned to the country, and as soon as he landed at the airport, he was picked up by operators of the Department of State Security, and then he was whisked away. Now, he was initially detained for 8 hours, and during that whole stretch of time, they did not know whether or not they couldn't, based on this recent development, they weren't sure who they picked up. Now, when he was released later that night, the official explanation first given to him was that he was picked up based on the request of another agency that was not identified. Fast forward a few days later, and when he's told to come pick up his passport, he's now told it's a case of possible mistaken identity. Now, those three phrases are very instructive. One, it shows that the DSS is still not sure whether it's the person they intended to pick up, because possible doesn't speak to certainty. Now, having detained him for 8 hours, the trauma he would have definitely gone through, not just the members of his family, because they're thinking, okay, what exactly is he supposed to have done to this time that would justify his detention? Now you've released his passport to him, and with the use of possible, the second necessary implication is that he can still be picked up, because they're not sure whether it's him or not, whether he's the person they intend to pick up. And even when they're sure, they'll come pick him up again. So now, what are his remedies under the law? Thankfully, he has a very good lawyer. He need pay this very good lawyer. And it's up to Mr. Shinka to decide whether he wants to set an example for other Nigerians to follow. Now, what is that example? That the security agencies in Nigeria, the law enforcement agencies in Nigeria, should get their acts together, complete every aspect of the investigation before attempting to pick up anyone. Time and time again, we read that Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C has been picked up. When they go to court, now seeking time, extra time, to now conclude investigations.
Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Exactly. So the abiding question remains: if you've not concluded your investigation, if you're not sure of the identity of the person you want to pick up, what then informed the actual arrest? What material did you rely on? What material did you use to pick him up? Because it's extremely traumatizing to see that an individual can be detained for 8 hours at the minimum, and then later on it's a case of possible mistaken identity. I know heads will roll for this. There will be no internal sanctions, nothing. And then we'll just continue business as usual. Something has to give at some point.
Something definitely has to give at some point in time. Let me see here. Fidelis on WhatsApp says, lies are the trademark of this administration. Butler said, when trouble festers for more than a day or so, the government is the cause, or government has a hand in it. Nigerian government is the cause of all this. It's the consequence of the election Dangote claimed about Malta. Dangote's claim, I'm guessing you mean, has anyone countered that? I believe there's been a counter statement on that one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Our refineries will never work. Tinubu and his families, and thank you for your message, Fidelis. Let me see here. King Joe from Surulere says, please, I want to know what happened to the other products gotten from the crude oil after refining outside fuel, diesel, kerosene, and aviation fuel out of the 21 general products gotten from crude oil. And there's one more message I wanted to take before we go back into the stories. This is from DG, I believe. Says, this is a major economic sabotage, worse than any this country has ever experienced. Hopefully punishable by life imprisonment or the death penalty. I don't know if that's going to apply. Why is NNPC owing? Who's responsible and who should be sacked? Like I always say, so many questions, we don't have enough answers. AB, let's get back into the conversation and talk about our president's visit to China. He arrived on Sunday in Beijing, in the People's Republic of China, for an official state visit after a brief layover in the United Arab Emirates. Now, the president's aircraft touched down at Beijing Capital International Airport at about 9:25 a.m. local time and was received by the Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, Zhao Zhiyuan.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Ironically, almost exactly on the same date in 2018, former President Muhammadu Buhari went to China. Well, we do remember that President Tinubu said he would continue exactly as Buhari did. So this should be no surprise to anybody. He's arriving there, received by an Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, to say the same thing, he's going there, of course, with Ministers of Finance, Trade, Work, Defense, and Petroleum. The delegation also includes Kaduna Governor, Lagos Governor, and Kwara Governor. And the president's so-called high-profile visit is aimed at fostering economic ties and spreading investment for Nigeria. Do you know that Zoom could have done this meeting? It is possible to sit down, put on all the clear lights in the State House, and have a conversation via Zoom. At least when Buhari went, there was this forum for economic cooperation between Africa and China. This is just one trip by the president. I don't know that Nigerian Airport 401 cannot even have enough fuel to go straight to China. I have to stop over at the United Arab Emirates. We're going to talk about green economy, agriculture, satellite technology development, media enterprise. Listen. For goodness sake, we've been down this road before. We've had these meetings. I am not aware of what, if anything, useful came out of them to enhance the Nigerian economy and most importantly, the Nigerian person. So, in fact, after all those things, they have been seizing airplanes left and right. I'm trusting that President Tinubu will not come up with Kabu from China this time because they're taking the plane they normally seize our planes. At the end of the day, these trips, I understand, yeah, I've said a bit of things in a lighter note. There is a place and a time for, economic and political, structural meetings and all that. But honestly, it's really important to set your country on the right framework that can benefit from these kinds of meetings. So I have very little faith that anything worthwhile will come out of this trip. I stand to be corrected. I'm willing to celebrate if it does, but based on history, based on the fact that I, Garba Shehu released something on 1st of September, exactly when President Buhari went for this same journey, junket, if you ask me, and nothing useful in Nigerian economy persisted as the economy with the largest number of poor people in the world. And right now, we're not just poor, we're even more desperate. President of Nigeria, sit down, get the country working. As the president as the minister of oil, your country has no oil, you're going to China. To do what? To borrow jerry cans? Please.
All right, thank you for that, AB. Mr. C. Let's really quickly take the story coming out of the Vanguard because time has absolutely flown by. Vice President Kashim Shettima has announced that the federal government's healthcare reforms have attracted over $4.8 billion in potential investments. Now, speaking at the commissioning of Sahad hospitals in Abuja, Shettima outlined a comprehensive strategy to address long-standing challenges and propel Nigeria's healthcare system into the future. Potential 4.8 billion sounds exciting.
Actually, it shouldn't be exciting because, again, I'm not sure what he wants us to understand by potential, right? This is the same vice president who told us the other time that 300,000 jobs have been created and one other interesting development. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing to back up this claim. Now, he's come this time, he's told us $4.8 billion have been attracted for the health sector. Attracted from where? From Mars, from Pluto, from Jupiter? Where exactly has it been attracted from? Two, over what period of time? When should we start to expect the money to hit the Nigerian accounts? What will the money be? So when you speak in broad terms and you don't dive into specifics, you don't dive into milestones, you don't dive into timelines, everything. What are we supposed to make of this? Now, yes, they've launched an ambitious plan on paper to ensure that the best of Nigerian talent in the medical and health sector remains in country as opposed to leaving the country for better options. How that is going to work remains to be seen, given the fact that you simply cannot match the wages being offered outside Nigeria. Now we're told $4.8 billion investment. Remember, in the first year of this administration, the early part of the first year, we were told that the president had visited several countries, including India, where foreign investment was also attracted. Till date, we haven't seen any drop of these rumored investments. So again, there's nothing to be hopeful for. There's nothing to be excited about until we start to see the investments. Let's just maintain our position. And I repeat, no sane investor will invest in this country the way it's presently constituted, the way it's presently governed, the way it currently exists.
All right, let's round up with a couple of messages. Okay, AB, really quickly, really quickly.
One sentence. Was he speaking from the front or the back lobby of his new 21 billion naira mansion when Nigerians are suffering as we are?
All right, this is coming from Adeboye Gadebiji, who says if a company, NNPCL, that is meant to make profit is incurring debts, then what it means is that it's either those in charge are stealing from the company or they are incompetent. The blame should also go to the president because he has the power to fire and hire new hands to handle the NNPCL, but he chooses to elongate the tenure of Mele Kyari that has been clouded and surrounded with failure and corruption. And he says, I pray the Nigeria police force should detain the NLC President Joe Ajero if it's what we make the NLC or force the NLC to go on strike as it is today. Nigerians and workers have 1 million reasons for going on strike, but the NLC isn't seeing it that way. Their only worry is their president's welfare. So I pray that the police should arrest Joe Ajero. I don't know how that'll benefit anyone at the end of the day, but hey. Idipamuza says, Mr. President should address Nigerians as the petroleum minister to explain to us why we should be suffering fuel scarcity despite being blessed with God's abundant crude oil. Why the constant shifting of dates for our refineries working? Good question there. This is from Ibrahim Zachary, who says, I choose not to call the present government a government of doom. To lie to the public is now like a walk in the park. Hope is not the strategy. Hope is not the strategy, unfortunately. Francis says, first is the shame and a big fraud, truly an organized crime that one of the largest producers of crude oil cannot refine for domestic use. The NNPC are sole importers because the refined products must be shipped in from particular places. The PH refinery goalpost being shifted time and again and can never work because interest will be affected. And that's all we can take this morning. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much, Mr. C and AB, for coming through and giving your perspective and breaking down these issues for us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week ahead. Everybody can hit me up at AB Bozimo on our platform, and something to look forward to. Better news stories from more competent leaders.
Thank you for having me. Everyone do have a productive, fruitful, and rewarding.
All right. Thank you so much for joining in. Keep it tuned. 8:15, we'll take a walk into the locker room. It's all about sports. Tega will be in for that one. All right, AB. Have a good one.